Hello, HauntLine Studios? My name's Eric. I'm 30 years old, and I'm calling from Michigan. I work as a mechanic at a small auto shop just outside town. I've been there since I was about 20, and most of my life has been pretty normal. Work during the day, dinner with my parents sometimes, weekends fixing old trucks or watching football. I'm calling because something has been happening with the landline phone in my parents' house. And I know how this is going to sound, but for the past few weeks, my dead brother has been calling us. The reason I'm finally reaching out tonight is because of what he said the last time the phone rang. Because according to the voicemail I saved, my brother doesn't think he's buried where we put him. And after what happened yesterday at the cemetery, I'm starting to think he might be right. My brother's name was Jason. He was 2 years older than me, and if you'd ever met him, you'd probably remember him as the loud one between us. Jason talked to everyone. Strangers, customers at the shop, people at gas stations. He had this way of making conversations happen. We actually worked together at the same garage for a while. It was a small place called Parker's Auto Repair. 2 lifts, an office that smelled like burnt coffee, and a gravel parking lot full of half-working trucks. Jason loved that job. He could take apart an engine faster than anyone I knew. If someone brought in a car making a weird sound, he could usually tell what was wrong before the hood was even open. People trusted him, and he trusted the road. That's the thing about Jason. He loved driving at night. Said the roads were quieter, the air felt different after midnight. Sometimes he'd take the long way home just to keep driving. 2 years ago, that habit killed him. It was late November, cold enough that the wind felt sharp when you stepped outside. Jason had been visiting a friend across town. Nothing unusual about it. Around midnight, he started driving home. The police report said his truck left the road somewhere along County Route 6. There's a stretch out there where the trees grow thick and the road curves downhill. Apparently, he lost control. The truck smashed through a guardrail and disappeared down into a wooded ravine. Nobody saw it happen. The truck wasn't found until the next morning when a passing driver noticed the broken rail. By the time the police reached the wreck, Jason was already gone. I remember standing in the hospital hallway with my parents while a doctor explained it. Impact trauma. Instant. They use calm voices when they say those things, like softer words will make it easier to hear. But nothing really helps. The funeral happened a week later. Half the town showed up. Jason had that kind of personality, the kind that left people with stories to tell. The cemetery where we buried him sits outside town near an old line of oak trees. Our grandparents are buried there too. It felt like the right place. For 2 years, life moved forward the way it always does. I kept working at the shop, my parents stayed in the house we grew up in, and every year around the anniversary of the accident, we'd go visit Jason's grave, bring flowers, stand quietly for a few minutes, then go home. But something changed 3 weeks ago, and it started with the landline phone. My parents never got rid of it. It's one of those old wall-mounted phones in the kitchen. Most days it just sits there. Nobody calls it anymore. Everyone uses cell phones now. So when it rang one night during dinner, it immediately felt strange. My mom answered it. "Hello?" She listened for a moment, then frowned and hung up. "Probably a robocall," she said. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time my dad answered. Same thing. Silence. He hung up and shrugged. At the time, none of us thought much of it. But the next night, it happened again, and that's when things started to feel wrong. My mom answered the phone, and instead of silence, She heard breathing. Not talking, just breathing. Slow, heavy, like someone was holding the receiver close to their mouth. She kept saying hello, but the breathing didn't stop. Eventually, she hung up, but before she did, she glanced at the caller ID, and that's when she froze, because the name on the screen said Jason Carter, my brother. At first, we assumed it was some kind of technical glitch. Maybe the phone company had messed something up. Maybe someone had recycled an old number. But the truth was, Jason had never even used that number. The landline belonged to the house. Still, we tried to ignore it, but the calls kept coming. Every few nights, always after dark, always the same pattern. The phone rings, someone answers, breathing, nothing else. Then the call ends. The caller ID always showed Jason's name. After about a week of this, I started answering the calls myself. Part of me wanted to prove it was some kind of prank. The first time I picked up, I said hello 3 times. All I heard was breathing. Wet, uneven breathing, like someone who had been running or crying. I felt this strange chill crawl up my spine, and without thinking, I looked at the caller ID. Jason's name was glowing on the screen. I hung up immediately. We contacted the phone company the next day. They ran a check on incoming calls. According to them, there were no calls being made to that number during those times, which meant either their system was wrong or the phone was ringing without an actual caller. A few nights passed without anything happening. Then last Tuesday, the phone rang again. It was just after midnight. Everyone else was asleep. I was staying over because my dad and I planned to fix the garage roof the next morning. So I walked into the kitchen and answered the phone. Hello? The breathing started immediately. But this time, there was something else in the background. A faint sound, like wind moving through something hollow. I didn't hang up. I just listened. 30 seconds passed. Then, the voice spoke. It sounded dry, strained, like someone forcing air through a throat that wasn't used to talking. But I recognized it instantly. It was Jason. He said one sentence, "You shouldn't have buried me there." Then the line went dead. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after that. The clock above the fridge ticked loudly in the silence. My hands were shaking because the voicemail system had recorded the call. And when I played it back, the voice was there. Jason's voice. "You shouldn't have buried me there." The next morning, I told my parents. My mom started crying almost immediately, but my dad reacted differently. He went quiet, really quiet. Then he said something strange. He asked if I remembered exactly where Jason's truck had been found. I said of course, but my dad shook his head slowly. Apparently, the accident scene had been more complicated than we realized. The truck hadn't just crashed into a tree, it had fallen nearly 40 feet down into a ravine. And when the wreckage was recovered, identification had taken time. Dental records, paperwork, the kind of things families don't really question when they're grieving. But now my dad wasn't so sure everything went the way we thought. 2 days ago, we went to the cemetery, just the 3 of us. The sky was gray, and the wind moved through the trees in slow, quiet waves. Jason's grave looked the same as always. Stone marker, fresh grass, but something about the ground felt different. My dad stood there staring at the headstone for a long time. Then he told us something he hadn't mentioned before. A month earlier, he'd received a letter from the county records office.
Apparently, during a routine audit, they'd discovered a mistake in one of the burial documents from 2 years ago. The plot number assigned to Jason mismatched the cemetery map. At the time, my dad assumed it was just paperwork, but now it felt like something worse. My mom knelt beside the grave and touched the soil. Then she noticed something strange. The ground looked uneven, not freshly dug, but slightly sunken, like something underneath had shifted. We left the cemetery shortly after that. None of us wanted to stay. But that night, the phone rang again. I answered it. The breathing was louder this time, and Jason's voice came back. 3 words, "I'm still here." Then the call ended. Later, when I played back the voicemail recording, I noticed something I hadn't heard before. Behind Jason's voice, there was another sound, a low scraping noise, slow, rhythmic, like dirt being pushed aside. Yesterday morning, my dad called the cemetery office. He explained the paperwork mistake. At first, they didn't want to disturb the grave, but eventually they agreed to check the records and inspect the site. So today, we went back. 2 workers were already there when we arrived. They had shovels and a small digging machine. I remember the sound of the engine starting, the way the metal bucket bit into the soil. Each scoop lifted dark earth into the growing pile beside the grave. Nobody spoke much. My mom held my arm the whole time. After about 20 minutes, the machine hit something solid, the top of the coffin. The workers cleared the remaining dirt by hand. Then one of them pried the lid open. I'll never forget the look on his face. He stepped backwards slowly, like he had just seen something he couldn't explain, because the coffin was empty. No body, no clothing, nothing. Just a thin layer of dark soil at the bottom, and one deep scratch carved into the inside of the lid. 4 words, "You buried the wrong one."
If you love the slow burn of fear, the stories that creep under your skin, subscribe now. Don't fight the darkness. Let it follow you.